Have you ever felt like the world was actively trying to break you? Like no matter how hard you fought, you were one step away from losing everything? Liam Donovan felt that way every single day. He was a single father with $3 in his pocket, a sick daughter waiting at home, and a heart full of desperation. On a rainy Tuesday in Chicago, he made one simple choice. He gave up his bus seat to a stranger. He didn't know she was watching him. He didn't know that moment would spark a war between billionaires, uncover a buried family secret, and put a target on his back. This isn't a fairy tale. This is how one act of kindness destroyed Liam's life before rebuilding it into something he never could have imagined. The Chicago rain didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Liam Donovan adjusted his grip on the overhead rail of the number 147 bus, his knuckles white. The vehicle lurched forward, smelling of wet wool, diesel fumes, and the collective exhaustion of 50 commuters. Liam checked his watch. 8:45 a.m. He had 15 minutes to get to the interview at Halloway and Associates. He looked down at his shoes. They were polished, but if you looked closely, you could see the leather cracking near the toe. He was wearing his only suit, a charcoal two-piece he'd bought for his wedding 6 years ago. It was a little tight across the shoulders now, not because he'd bulked up, but because the stress seemed to have tightened his very bones. In his pocket, his hand brushed against the 3 crinkled $1 bills. That was it. That was the net worth of the Donovan family, until his unemployment check cleared on Friday. "Move back!" the driver yelled, though there was nowhere to move. Liam sat in one of the priority seats near the front, clutching his black portfolio case against his chest like a shield. Inside wasn't just a resume, it was his soul. Sketches, architectural drafts, designs for sustainable housing, dreams he had put on hold when his wife, Sarah, died 2 years ago. Dreams that didn't pay for his 5-year-old daughter Mia's asthma medication. The bus stopped at Michigan Avenue. A surge of people pushed in. Among them was a woman. She wasn't dressed for the weather. She wore a thin beige trench coat that was soaked through at the shoulders, and her hair was plastered to her cheek. She looked to be in her late 20s, perhaps 30. She didn't look poor, but she looked broken. Her eyes were red-rimmed, staring at the floor, and she swayed slightly as the bus jerked back into motion. She gripped the pole next to Liam, her fingers trembling. Liam looked around. Every head was buried in a phone. No one looked up. No one cared. The every man for himself mentality of the city was in full effect. Liam felt the ache in his own legs. He hadn't slept in 24 hours because Mia had been coughing all night. He needed this seat. He needed to be composed for the interview. But he looked at the woman's hand, the way her knuckles were white, gripping that pole for dear life. He didn't think. He just stood up. "Here," Liam said, his voice raspy. "Please, take it." The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were a piercing, unusual shade of violet blue. For a second, she looked terrified, as if she expected him to yell at her. Then she saw the genuine exhaustion in his face. "I'm fine," she whispered. "You're not," Liam said gently, stepping aside and gesturing to the plastic seat. "Sit down before the bus turns. Please." She hesitated, then collapsed into the seat. "Thank you," she breathed. "You have no idea." "It's just a seat," Liam muttered. The bus hit a pothole. Hard. Liam, who hadn't secured a grip on the rail yet, was thrown off balance. He slammed into the person behind him, and his portfolio slipped from his sweaty grasp. It hit the wet floor with a slap. The zipper, which had been finicky for months, burst open. Disaster. Papers spilled out onto the dirty, wet floor of the bus. His architectural renderings, the sketch of the eco-garden high-rise he had spent 3 weeks perfecting for this interview. No, Liam gasped, dropping to his knees. He scrambled to gather them, but the muddy boots of commuters were everywhere, A heavy work boot landed squarely on his best rendering, leaving a thick, black smear of grease across the drawing. "Watch it, pal," someone grunted. Liam felt heat rise up his neck. He grabbed the papers, shoving them back into the case, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He stood up, clutching the ruined portfolio. "Oh my God," the woman in the seat said. She reached out and touched his arm. "Your drawings, are you an architect?" Liam looked at the grease stain on the top paper. "I was trying to be," he said, his voice hollow. "Today. I was trying to be today." "I'm so sorry," she said, and her gaze dropped to the portfolio. "That design, the cantilevered garden. It's beautiful." "It's ruined," Liam said. He checked his watch. 8:58 a.m. And I'm late. The bus screeched to a halt at his stop. Liam didn't wait for a reply. He pushed through the doors, stepping out into the pouring rain, feeling like the universe was laughing at him. He didn't see the woman turn in her seat, twisting her body to watch him run down the street. He didn't see her pull a sleek, waterproof phone from her pocket. And he certainly didn't hear her say, "It's me, I found him." No, not the target. I found something else. The interview was a bloodbath. Mr. Halloway, the hiring manager at the firm, was a man who looked like he had been born wearing a tie. He sat behind a glass desk that cost more than Liam's entire education, tapping a gold pen against a pristine notepad. Liam sat opposite him, water dripping from his coat onto the expensive carpet. He had tried to dry the drawings in the bathroom hand dryer, but they were warped and crinkled. The grease stain was undeniable. "Mr. Donovan," Halloway said, not even looking up from Liam's resume, "you have a gap in your employment. 2 years?" "My wife passed away," Liam said, keeping his voice steady. "I took time to care for my daughter. She has health complications." Halloway finally looked up. His eyes were cold, calculating. "While that is unfortunate, the architectural world moves fast. 2 years is a lifetime. Technology changes, codes change." "I've kept up," Liam insisted, pushing the portfolio forward. "If you look at these designs, you'll see I've been working on high-density sustainable housing concepts that could save the firm." Halloway opened the portfolio. He saw the warped paper. He saw the boot print. He laughed. It was a dry, sharp sound. "You bring me trash?" Halloway asked. "You walk into a top-tier Chicago firm, dripping wet, with drawings that look like they were pulled out of a dumpster, and ask for a job?" "There was an incident on the bus," Liam said, his jaw tightening. "The ideas are sound. The math works. Just look at the structure." Halloway closed the portfolio and slid it back across the glass. "We need professionals, Mr. Donovan, not charity cases. Get out. Get out." The walk home was a blur. Liam didn't take the bus. He didn't want to spend the remaining $3. He walked 40 blocks in the drizzle, his ruined shoes blistering his heels. When he got to his small basement apartment in the Rogers Park neighborhood, the babysitter, Mrs. Higgins, was waiting at the door. "She's been coughing again, Liam," Mrs. Higgins said sympathetically. "I gave her the inhaler at noon, but she needs a refill soon." "I know," Liam said, leaning his forehead against the doorframe. "I'll get it tomorrow." "Thanks, Mrs. Higgins. I'll pay you on Friday." Mrs. Higgins patted his arm. "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Just take care of that little girl." Liam went inside. The apartment smelled of damp drywall. Mia was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that was too thin for the drafty room. He sat on the floor beside her, watching her chest rise and fall with a slight wheeze. He put his head in his hands and wept. Silent, shaking sobs. He had failed. He had no job, no money, and no way to fix this. Knock, 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 dot. The sound was sharp and authoritative. Liam wiped his face frantically. It was 7 p.m. It was probably the landlord, Mr. Kovac, coming for the late rent. Liam stood up, practiced his apology speech, and opened the door. It wasn't Mr. Kovac. Standing in the hallway was a man who looked like a linebacker dressed by Armani. He wore a black earpiece and held a large black umbrella. Behind him, parked right in front of the peeling paint of the apartment building, was a Rolls-Royce Phantom. "Liam Donovan?" the man asked. His voice was deep, like gravel grinding together. "Yes," Liam said, instinctively blocking the view of the inside of his apartment. "My employer would like a word." "Who is your employer?" "Silas Garrison." Liam froze. The name was legendary. Silas Garrison wasn't just a billionaire. He was the billionaire, the titan of Chicago real estate, the man who owned half the skyline. "I think you have the wrong person," Liam stammered. "I don't know Silas Garrison." "He knows you," the bodyguard said. He reached into his jacket pocket. Liam flinched, but the man only pulled out a thick, black envelope with gold lettering. "He requested your presence at dinner. Tonight." Liam looked at the car, then back at the bodyguard. "I can't. My daughter is sleeping. I don't have a babysitter." The bodyguard didn't blink. "Mrs. Higgins has already been contacted and compensated. She is on her way down from 4B to watch the child." Liam stepped back. "How do you know Mrs. Higgins?" "Mr. Garrison is thorough." The bodyguard gestured to the car. "Please, Mr. Donovan, you do not want to decline this." It wasn't a threat, exactly, but it wasn't a request either. 5 minutes later, Mrs. Higgins arrived, looking bewildered but clutching a wad of cash that looked like $500. Liam kissed Mia's forehead, grabbed his ruined portfolio, he didn't know why, maybe it was just a reflex, and stepped into the rain. The bodyguard opened the back door of the Rolls-Royce. Liam slid onto the butter-soft leather. The interior smelled of expensive cologne and old money. Sitting on the other side of the seat was not Silas Garrison. It was the woman from the bus. She was transformed. The beige trench coat was gone, replaced by a midnight blue silk dress that hugged her frame. Her hair was dried and styled in elegant waves. She held a crystal glass of sparkling water. She looked at Liam, who was dripping wet and wearing his worn-out suit. A small, sad smile played on her lips. "Hello, Liam," she said softly. "You," Liam whispered. "Who are you?" "My name is Audrey," she said. "Audrey Garrison. Silas is my father." Liam felt the blood drain from his face. He had given his seat to the daughter of the most powerful man in the city. "I don't understand. Why am I here?" Audrey reached over and tapped the ruined portfolio resting on Liam's knees. "Because," she said, her eyes turning serious, "I saw what was in your bag before the boot ruined it. And because my father is dying, Liam, he needs a successor who isn't a shark. He needs a builder." She leaned in closer. "But I have to warn you," she whispered, glancing at the partition between them and the driver. "If you accept what he's about to offer you, you might wish you had stayed on that bus." The Rolls-Royce didn't take them to a restaurant. It bypassed the city centre entirely, heading towards the Gold Coast and turning up a private, heated driveway that led to the subterranean garage of the Garrison Spire, the tallest residential building in Chicago. Liam sat in stunned silence as the car ascended in a private elevator intended only for the penthouse. His ears popped as they passed the 80th floor. Beside him, Audrey sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her posture rigid. The vulnerability she'd shown on the bus was gone, replaced by a porcelain armor. The elevator doors slid open directly into a foyer larger than Liam's entire apartment building. The floor was polished white marble that reflected the staggering, panoramic view of the city lights below. It was beautiful, cold, and utterly intimidating. Standing in the center of the room, leaning heavily on an ebony cane topped with silver, was Silas Garrison. He was smaller than he appeared in magazines. The legendary tycoon was shrunken inside a velvet smoking jacket. His skin was grey, papery, and his breathing echoed with a wet rattle in the cavernous space. But his eyes, the same startling violet blue as his daughter's, burned with undiminished ferocity. "The Samaritan!" Silas wheezed, his voice like dry leaves skittering on pavement. He didn't offer a hand. He just stared, dissecting Liam with a gaze that had leveled competitors for 40 years. "Mr. Garrison," Liam managed, clutching his ruined portfolio closer to his chest. "It's an honor." though I admit I'm confused. Silas turned slowly and began a painful shuffle toward a seating area dominated by a massive fireplace. Audrey says you gave up your seat on the 147 route, a hellscape of a commute. It was just common courtesy, sir. She looked tired. Silas chuckled, a sound that dissolved into a hacking cough. Audrey was instantly at his side, offering a glass of water, her face etched with worry. Silas waved her off impatiently. Courtesy, Silas spat the word out. Courtesy is dead in this city, Mr. Donovan. I killed it. My competitors killed it. We built an empire on blood and contracts. And now, he gestured around the opulent room with disgust, now I'm surrounded by sharks waiting for me to bleed out so they can start the feeding frenzy. They sat. Liam perched on the edge of a leather sofa that cost more than a car. Let's cut to the chase, Silas said, leaning forward, his eyes boring into Liam's. I had you vetted the second Audrey texted me your description. Liam Donovan, widower, father of one daughter, Mia, age 5, diagnosed with severe pediatric asthma, unemployed for 2 years. Financial status, abysmal. Eviction imminent. Liam felt sick. Violation washed over him. You had no right. I have every right because I have the money, Silas interrupted brutally. You were rejected by Holloway today. Idiots. They look at suits, not souls. Silas reached toward a coffee table and picked up a tablet. He tapped the screen and slid it toward Liam. It was paused security footage from the number 147 bus. I watched it, Silas said. You didn't just give up a seat. You gave up your dignity to protect those drawings when they fell. And then, when that ape stepped on your work, you didn't fight back because you knew you couldn't afford bail if you got arrested. You swallowed your pride for your daughter. Silas leaned back, exhausted by the speech. That's discipline. That's sacrifice. My executives? They'd sell their own mothers for a corner office. Liam looked at the frozen image of himself on the tablet, looking defeated on the bus floor. What do you want from me? My legacy is the Aurora Project, Silas said, his voice softening. A sustainable, self-sufficient urban community. It was my wife's dream before she died. It's supposed to be about giving back, not just profit. But the man currently running it? Silas grimaced. He wants to cut corners, turn it into another, overpriced glass ghetto for the rich. Silas pointed a trembling finger at Liam's ruined portfolio. My daughter saw your sketches. She says you understand structure, that you care about how people live, not just how the building looks. Silas pulled a contract from inside his jacket. He tossed it onto the table. I'm offering you the position of lead design consultant on the Aurora project. The starting salary is $250,000 a year. Liam's breath hitched. The room seemed to tilt. Furthermore, Silas continued, watching Liam's reaction like a hawk, the position comes with immediate, top-tier executive health insurance, full coverage, no deductibles. It includes access to the best specialists at Lurie Children's Hospital for your daughter. The air left Liam's lungs. Mia. He thought of her wheezing on that damp couch, the inhaler running empty. This wasn't a job offer. It was a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. I don't know what to say, Liam whispered. Say yes, Audrey said softly from beside her father. Her eyes were pleading. Before you do, a smooth, chilling voice cut through the room from the shadows of the hallway. Perhaps Mr. Donovan should know exactly what meat grinder he's stepping into. A man stepped into the light. He was perhaps 35, impossibly handsome, wearing a suit that fit him like a second skin. His hair was slicked back, and his smile didn't reach his pale, predatory eyes. Liam, Audrey said, her voice tight. This is Grant Hemlock, my father's current chief operating officer. Grant didn't look at Liam. He looked at Silas with thinly veiled contempt. Silas, really? A bus charity case? You're insulting the board. The Aurora project is mine. I've been managing it for 2 years. You've been butchering it for 2 years, Grant, Silas wheezed, his face reddening. Cutting safety protocols to pad your bonus. Grant laughed, adjusting his diamond cufflinks. I'm ensuring profitability. Something this architect, with a 2-year resume gap, knows nothing about. He finally turned his gaze to Liam. It was like being stared down by a cobra. Go back to your basement, Donovan. This league will eat you alive by lunchtime. Liam looked at Grant, the embodiment of everything that had kept him down. The arrogance, the privilege. Then he looked at Silas, dying and desperate. Finally he looked at the contract, picturing Mia's face. Liam stood up. He picked up the pen lying next to the contract. You're right, Mr. Hemlock, Liam said, his voice steadier than he felt. I don't know your league, but I know how to build things that last. And it sounds like you've just been digging a grave for this company. Liam signed his name on the dotted line. The silence that followed was deafening. Grant Hemlock's smile vanished. His eyes went flat and dead. You just made a very expensive mistake, Ploughboy, Grant whispered, turning on his heel and stalking out of the penthouse. Silas slumped back into his pillows, letting out a rattling sigh of relief. Good, the old man murmured. Let the games begin. Audrey walked Liam to the elevator. As the doors were about to close, she put a hand on the sensor to stop them. I warned you, she whispered, her violet eyes intense. He hired you because Grant hates you now. You're a distraction. You're bait to draw Grant's fire, while my father tries to secure the company for me. Liam gripped the portfolio tighter. Why are you telling me this now? After I signed? Because you need to know the truth, Audrey said. You're in the golden cage now, Liam. The door is locked, and there's a tiger in here with you. The first week at Garrison Enterprises was psychological warfare. Liam was given an office on the 40th floor, overlooking Lake Michigan. It was all glass, chrome, and aggressive minimalism. It felt less like a workspace, and more like a sterile observation tank. He had a secretary, a sleek computer, and a title plate on his door that read, Liam Donovan, Lead Design Consultant, Aurora Initiative. He also had the distinct feeling that every single person on the floor wanted him dead. Grant Hemlock had done his work efficiently. The whispers started the moment Liam stepped off the elevator on Monday morning. The charity hire, Silas's pet project, the bus hobo. They stopped talking whenever he entered the break room. Emails he sent to department heads went unanswered for days. Crucial files for the Aurora project were accidentally corrupted on the server just hours before he needed them. Liam didn't care about the whispers. He cared about the work. He dove into the Aurora blueprints with a manic energy born of desperation. What he found shocked him. Silas was right. The original vision for an eco-friendly, sustainable community had been gutted. Grant Hemlock had swapped out high-grade, sustainable timber for cheap composites that were borderline flammable. He'd eliminated green spaces to cram in more luxury retail units. The structural integrity of the central atrium was questionable at best. It wasn't architecture. It was a real estate scam dressed up in greenwashing. Liam spent his nights at the office, redlining blueprints, running structural simulations, and rebuilding the project from the ground up. He was fueled by vending machine coffee and the photo of Mia he kept on his desk, a photo taken just yesterday, where her cheeks already looked rosier thanks to the new medication the company plan covered. The only ally he had was Audrey. She didn't work on his floor. Her office was in the executive suite with her father and Grant, but she found reasons to visit. She would drop by with actual food from outside restaurants, replacing his stale sandwiches. You look terrible, she said one Thursday evening, dropping a bag of Thai takeout on his desk at 9 p.m. The office floor was deserted except for the cleaning crew. Liam rubbed his burning eyes, looking up from a sprawling blueprint. Thanks, you know how to charm a guy. Audrey pulled up a chair, her usual cool demeanor softening in the dim light of the desk lamp. Grant is furious. You're actually fixing things. He thought you'd drown in the paperwork, but the engineering team is starting to respect you. They see you know your stuff." "They haven't said 2 words to me," Liam muttered, opening a container of pad thai. "They're terrified of Grant. If they side with you openly, they're fired," Audrey explained, taking a spring roll. "But I see the reports. You're saving the company millions in potential lawsuits down the road by fixing these safety issues." She looked at the photo of Mia. "How is she?" Liam smiled, a genuine, tired smile. "Better. She slept through the night 3 times this week. I can't thank you and your father enough for that." Audrey looked away, guilt flashing across her face. "Don't thank Silas. He's using that little girl's health to keep you obedient. It's leverage." "Liam, never forget that." "Why do you stay?" Liam asked quietly. "You hate it here. You hate what Grant is doing. Why don't you just take your trust fund and leave?" Audrey traced the grain of the wooden desk with her finger. "Because this company was my mother's soul before it became my father's weapon. The Aurora project was hers. Grant is turning her legacy into a slum for rich people. I won't let him win. I need to take over when my father goes. But I can't fight Grant alone. He owns the board." She looked up at him, her eyes shimmering. In that moment, they weren't 2 pawns in a billionaire's game. They were just 2 people trapped in the same high-rise prison. "I need you to succeed, Liam. Not just for Silas. For me." Liam felt a dangerous pull toward her, a shared vulnerability that was terrifying in its intensity. "We'll fix it, Audrey. We'll build it right." The intercom on Liam's desk buzzed, making them both jump. It was Grant's assistant. "Mr. Donovan? Mr. Hemlock reminds you that the Mid-Autumn Gala is tomorrow night at the Art Institute. Attendance is mandatory for all executive staff. Black tie." Audrey sighed, standing up and smoothing her skirt, the armor sliding back into place. The gala, a night of champagne, fake smiles, and corporate backstabbing. "Welcome to the real job, Liam." The gala was a sensory overload of wealth. The massive hall of the Art Institute was bathed in gold light. Women wore jewelry worth more than Liam's lifetime earnings. Men made deals that shifted the city's economy between sips of $50 scotch. Liam felt like he was wearing a costume. The tuxedo Audrey had arranged for him fit perfectly, but he felt like an imposter in his own skin. He stood near a towering marble sculpture, nursing a sparkling water, watching the sharks swim. Silas was too ill to attend, so Grant Hemlock was holding court in the center of the room, looking like the king he believed he was. Grant spotted Liam and excused himself from a group of investors, gliding toward him with a shark-like grin. "Donovan," Grant said smoothly, his voice low so only Liam could hear over the chamber music. "Didn't think you'd show. Thought you might be terrified of silverware that wasn't plastic." "I'm just here for the architecture, Grant," Liam said calmly, taking a sip of his water. "It's amazing what you can build when you don't cut corners." Grant's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. "You think you're clever. You think fixing those blueprints makes you safe. You're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, Liam. Silas is gone in a month, 6 weeks tops, and when the old man dies, his protection evaporates." Grant stepped closer, invading Liam's personal space. He smelled of expensive gin and malice. "I've been doing some digging into your past, Liam, into the lovely departed Sarah." Liam froze. The glass in his hand shook slightly. "Keep my wife's name out of your mouth." "Touchy," Grant chuckled. "It's interesting. You told Holloway you took 2 years off to care for your daughter after Sarah died in that car accident. Tragic." Grant leaned in. His whisper, like cyanide, poured into Liam's ear. "But you left out the part where Sarah was firing off emails 10 minutes before she crashed. Emails to Omnicorp, our biggest rival." Liam felt the blood drain from his face. The room seemed to spin. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Grant swirled his drink. "She was an architectural assistant at your old firm, wasn't she? Had access to proprietary designs. It looks an awful lot like your sainted wife was selling trade secrets to Omnicorp to pay off debts, and then she drove into a Meridian. You're lying, Liam hissed, but a cold seed of doubt, buried deep for 2 years, began to sprout. Sarah had been secretive about finances right before the end. Am I? Grant smirked. I have the server logs, Liam. I wonder what Silas would think if he knew his noble builder was married to a corporate spy. I wonder if he'd think you were in on it. Maybe you're here to finish what she started. Grant patted Liam heavily on the shoulder. Enjoy the champagne, Liam. It might be your last taste of the good life. Because I'm going to bury you under so much suspicion that you'll wish you were back on that bus with your $3. Grant walked away, dissolving back into the crowd of laughing millionaires. Liam stood alone by the cold marble statue, the golden light of the gala, feeling suddenly like the glare of an interrogation room. He looked across the room and caught Audrey's eye. She smiled tentatively at him. He couldn't smile back. If Grant could prove Sarah was a spy, Liam wouldn't just lose the job. He'd lose his reputation. He'd lose the insurance. He'd lose Mia. The trap had just snapped shut. The air in the Art Institute Grand Hall felt suddenly thin, as if the oxygen were being siphoned out by the chandeliers. Liam loosened his tie, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Grant's words about Sarah, corporate spy, traitor, echoed in his mind like a demonic mantra. He needed to leave. He needed to get home to Mia and check the old boxes of Sarah's things he had buried in the closet. He needed to know if his marriage had been a lie. Liam turned towards the exit, pushing through the crowd of tuxedoed socialites. He made it as far as the coat check before the music stopped abruptly. A feedback whine screeched through the speakers, silencing the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" A voice boomed. It wasn't the master of ceremonies. It was the head of security for Garrison Enterprises, a man named Miller, who had a neck as thick as a tree trunk. "We have a situation," Miller announced, his voice flat and menacing. "A secure prototype drive, containing Class A trade secrets for the Aurora project, has been removed from the secure vault in the director's suite upstairs. No one leaves the building until we conduct a search." A murmur of outrage rippled through the billionaires. "This is ridiculous," a woman in a red velvet gown shouted. "You can't search us." "We can and we will," Miller said. "Police are already at the doors." Liam froze. He saw Grant Hemlock standing near the stage, sipping his drink, looking bored. Then Grant's eyes flicked toward Liam. He raised his glass in a mock toast. It's a trap. The realization hit Liam with the force of a physical blow. The conversation earlier wasn't just to unsettle him. It was the distraction. Security teams began moving through the crowd with handheld wands. It was performative theater. They weren't really looking for the drive. They were waiting to get to him. Liam considered running, but running was an admission of guilt. He stood his ground, gripping his coat check ticket. "Mr. Donovan," Miller said, appearing beside him. 2 uniformed police officers were flanking him. "If you'll step this way." "Why me?" Liam asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his veins. "Why not start with the board members?" "Anonymous tip," Miller grunted. "Pat down, now." Liam raised his arms. The officer patted down his sides, his legs, his chest. Nothing. "Check the coat," Grant's voice cut in. He had sauntered over, a crowd gathering behind him like spectators at a gladiator match. He was in a rush to leave, wasn't he? The coat check attendant, looking terrified, handed over Liam's worn trench coat, the one he'd worn over the tuxedo, because he couldn't afford a wool overcoat. Miller grabbed the coat. He plunged his hand into the deep inner pocket. He pulled out a slim, silver flash drive with the Garrison logo etched on it. The room gasped. Flashbulbs from the Society photographers erupted, blinding Liam. "I've never seen that before," Liam shouted over the noise. "He planted it. Grant planted it. That drive contains the proprietary structural algorithms for the Aurora project," Grant said loudly, playing to the crowd. Worth about 50 million on the black market. Looks like the husband is following in the wife's footsteps, selling us out to the highest bidder. You liar! Liam lunged forward, but the two officers slammed him against the marble counter. His cheek smashed into the cold stone. Liam Donovan, you are under arrest for corporate espionage and grand larceny, the officer recited. As they cuffed his hands behind his back, Liam looked up. He saw Audrey standing at the edge of the circle. Her face was pale, her hands covering her mouth. She looked at him with horror. Does she believe him? Liam wondered. Or does she think I'm a thief too? Audrey! Liam yelled as they dragged him towards the exit. Check the logs. Check the concrete orders. It's a frame-up. Grant stepped in front of Audrey, blocking her view of Liam. He placed a protective, possessive hand on her shoulder. Don't look, my dear. It's always the ones you pity the most who bite your hand. The holding cell at the 1st District Police Station smelled of urine and bleach. Liam sat on the metal bench, still wearing his tuxedo, though the tie was gone and the shirt was torn. It had been 6 hours. He had used his one phone call to try Mrs. Higgins. No answer. He tried again. No answer. Panic, cold and sharp, began to set in. Finally, at 3 a.m., a guard walked by. Donovan, lawyer's here. I don't have a lawyer, Liam croaked. You do now. The heavy door buzzed open. A man in a cheap suit walked in, carrying a briefcase. He looked tired. I'm a public defender, the man said, sitting down. Name's Trent. Listen, buddy. They have the drive in your pocket. They have witness testimony from the CEO saying you were acting erratic. The bail is set at $500,000. I didn't do it, Liam said. Grant Hemlock planted it. Yeah, well, Grant Hemlock is the city's man of the year, and you're an unemployed architect with a record of debt. Who do you think the jury will believe? Liam grabbed the table. I need to call my daughter's babysitter. She's not answering. Trent looked at his notes. Ah, right. That might be because Mrs. Higgins is currently at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. The world stopped. What? Your daughter had an attack around 9 p.m., Trent said, his voice softening slightly. Mrs. Higgins called an ambulance. They're both there. I need to go. Liam stood up, the chair screeching. I need to see her. You're not going anywhere, Donovan. You're in lockup. Trent paused, looking uncomfortable. And there's another thing. Since you were terminated for cause regarding a felony effectively immediately at 10 p.m. tonight, your insurance has been voided. Liam felt his knees give out. He sank back onto the bench. Voided? Retroactive to the start of the pay period. It's a clause in the contract. Garrison Enterprises isn't paying for the hospital stay, Liam. And without that coverage, the doctors can only do the bare minimum to stabilize her. Liam put his head in his hands. This was it. This was how they broke him. It wasn't about the prison time. It was about Mia. Grant knew the only way to silence Liam was to threaten his child's life. If Liam fought the charges, Mia would suffer in a charity ward. If he confessed, maybe Grant would show mercy? No. Grant didn't have mercy. Liam stared at the concrete floor. He was trapped in a box, buried under lies, and his daughter was fighting for breath 5 miles away. Get me out on bail, Liam whispered. I don't care how. I told you it's $500,000, Trent said, closing his briefcase. Unless you have a rich uncle, you're staying here until trial. The door buzzed again. Processing release, a guard shouted. Trent looked confused. What? The guard unlocked the cell door. Someone just posted the bond. Cashier's check. Full amount. Liam stumbled out of the cell, blinking in the harsh hallway light. Standing at the desk, signing a mountain of paperwork, was a figure in a trench coat and a baseball cap pulled low. It wasn't a rich uncle. It was Audrey. She finished signing, handed the pen to the sergeant, and turned to look at Liam. She looked exhausted, her eyes red, but her jaw was set in a line of iron determination. Let's go, she said. We have work to do. Audrey drove a beat-up sedan that must have belonged to one of the house staff. The rain was torrential now, hammering the roof of the car as they sped down Lakeshore Drive. "You posted $500,000? Liam asked, staring at her profile. "I liquidated my jewelry. Sold my mother's vintage Cartier collection to a private broker at 4 a.m., Audrey said. Her voice was shaking, but her hands on the wheel were steady. "If my father finds out, he'll disown me. If Grant finds out, he'll probably have me committed." "Why did you do it?" Audrey slammed the brakes as a taxi cut them off. She turned to him, her eyes fierce. "Because I checked the logs, Liam, like you yelled at me to do." She reached into the back seat and tossed a file onto his lap. "I went back to the office after the arrest. I used my father's override code, the one Grant doesn't know I have. You were right. The concrete orders for the foundation of the Aurora Towers. They're designated as Type C." Liam opened the file, reading by the light of the street lamps. "Type C? That's residential driveway grade. You can't build a 50-story tower with this. It'll shear off in high winds. The entire building will collapse within 5 years. Grant is billing the company for Type A, nuclear grade, reinforced," Audrey explained. "The difference in cost is about $12 million. He's pocketing it." "He's building a death trap," Liam whispered. "And he's framing me to cover the paper trail. We have to prove it," Audrey said. "This printout isn't enough. It's just a digital log. Grant can claim it's a glitch or that you hacked the system to plant it. We need the physical manifests, the ones signed by the site foreman and the supplier." "Where are they?" "The construction site office, in the South Loop. They keep the physical copies in the safe there for the city inspectors." Liam looked at his watch, 5:15 a.m. "The site opens at 6 o'clock. We have 45 minutes before the crew arrives." "Then we better drive fast." The Aurora construction site was a skeleton of steel and concrete rising into the grey, stormy sky. It was surrounded by a high chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Audrey parked the car 2 blocks away in an alley. They ran through the rain, slipping in the mud. Liam was still in his ruined tuxedo pants and dress shirt, soaked to the bone. "There," Liam pointed. The site office was a double-wide trailer, sitting on cinder blocks near the base of the tower crane. "How do we get in?" Audrey asked, shivering. "I'm an architect," Liam grimaced. "I know how these temporary fences are rigged." He found a section of the fence where the ground had washed away slightly. He pulled the chain link up. "Crawl!" They shimmied under the metal, coating themselves in mud. They sprinted across the open ground, dodging piles of rebar and silent machinery. They reached the trailer, locked. Liam looked around. He picked up a loose piece of rebar. "Turn around." He smashed the small window of the door. He reached in, unlocked the deadbolt, and pushed the door open. Inside, the trailer smelled of stale coffee and blueprints. Liam went straight to the large grey filing cabinet in the corner. Locked. "Damn it," Liam hissed. He tried to pry it open with the rebar, but the metal bent. "Move," Audrey said. She pulled a hairpin from her messy bun. "I spent a summer locked in my room at boarding school. You learn things." It took her 30 agonizing seconds. Click, Liam ripped the drawer open. He flipped through the hanging folders. Invoices, supplier contracts, manifests. Here, he pulled out a thick binder. He opened it to the current month. There it was, the carbon copy of the delivery receipt. Supplier, Apex Concrete, grade C-Mix, signed by Grant Hemlock. And right underneath it, a second invoice from a shell company called Hemlock Holdings, billing Garrison Enterprises for grade A mix at a 400% markup. "He's not just skimming," Liam said, holding the paper up. "He's stealing the entire operating budget." Turin. Audrey was looking through a box of older files at the bottom of the cabinet. She froze. "Liam," she whispered, "look at this." She held up a dusty, yellowed file folder. The label read, "Internal Audit, 2024. Liam took it. He opened the first page. It was an inspection report detailing structural weaknesses in a Garrison Bridge project in Ohio. The report was signed, Sarah Donovan, Junior Assistant Architect. Liam felt the room spin. Sarah, read the note in the margin, Audrey pointed. In red ink, in Sarah's handwriting, it read, Grant offered me $50,000 to delete this report. I refused, taking this to Silas on Monday. The date of the note was 2 days before Sarah died. She wasn't a spy, Liam choked out, tears mixing with the rain on his face. She was a whistleblower. She found out Grant was cutting corners years ago. She was going to tell your father. And she died in a car accident before she could, Audrey said, her voice horrific. Grant killed her, or he had her run off the road. He murdered my wife, Liam said. The sorrow in his heart was instantly incinerated by a white-hot rage. He murdered her, and then he framed her memory to destroy me. We have everything we need, Audrey said, grabbing the binder and the Sarah file. We take this to the police. We take this to the press. We end him. They turned to the door. A bright light blinded them. Standing in the doorway of the trailer, silhouetted by the headlights of a black SUV, was a massive figure holding a shotgun. It was Miller, the head of security. I told Grant you two would come here, Miller said, racking the slide of the shotgun. He said you were too smart for your own good. Hand over the files. Liam stepped in front of Audrey. It's over, Miller. We have the proof. Grant is stealing from Silas. He killed my wife. I know, Miller shrugged. Who do you think cut her brake lines? Liam roared and lunged, but Miller was faster. He swung the butt of the shotgun, catching Liam in the ribs. Liam crumpled to the floor, gasping for air. Miller aimed the gun at Audrey. Give me the files, Miss Garrison. I really don't want to shoot the boss's daughter, but for $5 million, I'll get over the guilt. Audrey clutched the files to her chest, backing up against the desk. My father will hunt you down. Your father will be dead in a week, Miller sneered. And you two? Tragically, you were caught trespassing by a loyal security guard. There was a struggle. The guard feared for his life. Bang! Miller's finger tightened on the trigger. Suddenly, a high-pitched mechanical whirring sound filled the trailer. Miller frowned. What the? Crash! The wall of the trailer behind Miller exploded inward. A massive steel wrecking ball, the one attached to the crane outside, slammed into the side of the trailer, missing Miller by inches, but shattering the door frame and sending the security chief flying across the room. The trailer tipped precariously. Run! Liam screamed. He grabbed Audrey and they scrambled out through the hole the wrecking ball had made. Outside, in the cab of the crane, a figure was frantically working the levers. It was an old man in a hard hat. It was the site foreman, old Mr. Henderson, whom Liam had brought coffee to on his first day when everyone else ignored him. Go! Henderson yelled down from the cab. I'll hold him off. Miller was stumbling out of the wreckage, blood running down his forehead, raising the shotgun again. Liam and Audrey didn't look back. They sprinted toward the alley, clutching the files that were soaked in rain and blood. They reached Audrey's car. She fumbled with the keys, dropping them in the mud. Come on! Come on! Liam yelled, looking back. Miller was running towards them, limping but fast. Audrey found the keys. They dove inside. The engine roared to life. As they peeled away, a shotgun blast shattered the rear window, spraying glass over the back seat. But they were moving. They were alive. Where are we going? Audrey screamed over the wind rushing through the broken window. The police station? No, Liam said, looking at the files in his lap. The police are on Grant's payroll. Miller proved that. He looked at Audrey. We're going to the one place Grant won't follow us. We're going to the penthouse. We're taking this to Silas. Liam, my father is on life support. The shock might kill him. If we don't, Liam said, Grant wins, and Sarah died for nothing. Audrey tightened her grip on the wheel. She drifted around a corner, heading back towards the city skyline. Let's go wake him up. Take him on now. Liam and Audrey burst through the double doors of the penthouse solarium, looking like survivors of a war zone. They were dripping wet, covered in mud, and Liam's tuxedo was shredded from the fight at the construction site. Inside, the scene was one of sterile corporate power. The 12 members of the board of directors sat around a massive mahogany table. At the head sat Grant Hemlock, looking impeccable. To his right, Silas Garrison slumped in his wheelchair, eyes closed, seemingly unconscious. Grant froze mid-sentence. He had been seconds away from calling for a vote to declare Silas mentally incompetent and seize control of the company. "Security!" Grant barked, recovering his composure. "Remove these trespassers." "If anyone touches us," Audrey said, her voice ringing with authority, "I will have them blacklisted from every firm in Chicago." She stepped further into the room, flanked by Liam. The security guards hesitated, sensing the shift in power. Liam stepped forward and slammed the heavy, rain-soaked binder onto the polished table. It slid across the surface, hitting the water pitcher in front of Grant with a loud clack. "It's over, Grant," Liam said, his voice steady. "We have the manifests." "What is this nonsense?" Mrs. Vanderbilt, a senior board member, asked, adjusting her glasses. "Grant has been embezzling from the Aurora project for 2 years," Liam announced to the stunned room. "He's been substituting Type A structural concrete for cheap Type C driveway mix. He's billing the company for the premium material and pocketing the millions through a shell company." "Ridiculous," Grant scoffed, though a bead of sweat traced a line down his temple. "These are forgeries created by a desperate ex-employee and a disinherited daughter. They are signed by you," Audrey countered, "and we have the counter receipts from the supplier." "But that's just money," Liam said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. He pulled the yellowed file, the Sarah file, from his jacket. "This is blood." He tossed the file in front of Mrs. Vanderbilt. "My wife, Sarah Donovan, didn't die in an accident. She was a whistleblower. That file proves she found out Grant was compromising bridge safety in Ohio 2 years ago. She refused his bribe to stay silent. 2 days later, her brakes failed." Mrs. Vanderbilt opened the file. Her face went pale as she read the margin note in Sarah's handwriting. The room fell into a deathly silence. "Lies!" Grant shouted, standing up. "Silas, tell them! Tell them this is a conspiracy to ruin us!" Grant turned to the wheelchair, desperation clawing at his throat. "He's senile. He doesn't even know where he is." "Actually," a raspy voice cut through the air. Silas Garrison lifted his head. He pulled the oxygen mask from his face. His eyes were sharp, lucid, and burning with fury. I've heard enough." Grant stumbled back. "Silas, but the doctor said—" "The doctor said I needed rest, not that I was dead," Silas wheezed. "I've been listening, Grant. For the last 20 minutes, I've been listening to you bury yourself." Silas looked at Liam with profound sorrow. "You found the papers? You found out what happened to Sarah?" "We did, sir," Liam said. "Then justice is long overdue," Silas said. He looked at the board. "Motion to terminate Grant Hemlock, effective immediately." "Seconded," Mrs. Vanderbilt said instantly. Every hand in the room went up. "You can't do this," Grant hissed, his eyes wild. "I am this company." The solarium doors opened again. Detective Murray walked in, followed by police officers and a handcuffed, defeated Miller. "Miller cut a deal, Grant," the detective said. "He gave us everything. The concrete fraud, the shell companies, and the mechanic he paid to cut Sarah Donovan's brake lines." Grant slumped into his chair. The fight left him instantly. As officers hauled him up and cuffed him, he looked at Liam with empty eyes. "It was just business," Grant whispered. "No," Liam said, watching the man who destroyed his life being dragged away. "It was my family." 6 months later. The sun was shining brightly over Chicago for the opening of the Aurora Community Center. It wasn't a stuffy corporate event. It was a celebration. The building was a marvel of sustainable timber and glass, a testament to what happens when profit doesn't override humanity. Liam stood on the podium. He looked healthy, wearing a tailored suit, but his eyes were still kind. In the front row, his daughter Mia sat waving a flag. She was rosy-cheeked and laughing, her asthma controlled thanks to the top-tier care she now received. Next to her sat Audrey Garrison, the new CEO of Garrison Enterprises. She looked radiant, her hand resting protectively near Mia. "They told us kindness was a weakness," Liam said into the microphone, addressing the crowd. "They said you couldn't build a future on compassion. But we did." He looked at Audrey, and they shared a smile that promised a future far beyond the office. "The strongest foundation isn't concrete," Liam concluded. "It's the hand you reach out to a stranger when they need a seat." As the crowd cheered and the ribbon fell, Mia ran up the steps and jumped into Liam's arms. He spun her around, holding his world close. Liam Donovan, the man who once had $3 and a broken heart, finally had everything. He was home. And that is how a simple act of kindness toppled a billion-dollar empire. Liam's story reminds us that character is the only currency that truly matters. Grant Hemlock had the world at his feet, but lost his soul. Liam started with nothing but his integrity and gained a family. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and share it with someone who needs hope today. Type karma in the comments if you believe good things happen to good people. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life dramas. Thanks for watching.